I'm Richard Pyatt. Welcome to Traction for Your Workplace Goals. We talk about attaining those goals and recognizing the fruits of that labor. Michele Mollard is a certified EOS implementer, and we benefit from her knowledge here in this series. But more importantly, you can from her guidance as an implementer. Welcome back, Michele.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you.
We've spent some time, I think, from the perspective of the leadership team, at least in the last episode or two. Now we're talking about folks who are employed and who are working for the leadership team and helping them through a process that involves this kind of understanding that EOS brings and clarity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about leading through process, this is kind of where my head is at with this, but it's not leading from a management down leading. It's a leading in an organization internally, right? And so how do I lead right where I'm at? So I do not need to have the title of a leadership to be a leader, right? There's lots of books written on that. But that's a passion of ours. And so people say, oh, Michele, I can't get the employee engagement I want to get. I can't get this. I can't get that. You guys, the component, there's 6 in EOS. The component is called process. It is one of the last ones that some of my clients do. It's the hardest one, but it will give you the biggest impact in employee engagement that you'll ever see. Lots, I hate to poo-poo other ones, right? Some other implementers are probably listening to this. You guys know what we mean. All of them are important. But there's so much about this that when we can give clarity for our people through processes, through training, through measuring them and holding them accountable to a scorecard and activities, there's so much of that touches on and catapults their ability to lead the organization, to be in this boat rowing with you as hard as you are. And so leaders, I was just with a team out in Montana Tuesday, and they're, 5 of them, I say around the table, right? We're at a conference room. So 5 of them are in the boat, right? The table's the boat. And I said, and what happens if you had 5 other people rowing with you in that boat, rowing as hard as you? And they go, no one will row as hard as I. And I go, you wait and see. Because when we're done with all this, you wait and see, because that's what we're trying to do. And so if you're a leader in your organization, you feel like you're rowing harder, it might be because this process component is not as dialed in as it should be. And I'm going to change the script here in about 3 minutes about what we mean about it, because it's not a 600-page SOP binder that nobody looks at. And so that's what you're thinking. Scrap that idea. Listen to the next few minutes and I'll share with you what it is in our minds to be able to help this move forward for you. So,
boy, I'm lingering on this notion that you don't have to be in the leadership team to be a leader. Think about that for a second.
Right. And so think about, like, if I knew, if I was a salesperson and I was very clear on how to execute the CRM, right? Customer relationship management platform tools, right? There's plenty of there. I don't get paid for saying any of them, so we'll just leave it at that. But there's lots of details of that. And so if there's one of your salespeople that are just doing that well, every single time they're putting it all in there, they're putting down birthdays and everything like that, right? And so if I could literally pick that up and be like, hey, it's a reminder that it's Richard's second born's sweet 16 today, and I can email my customer and say, hey, congratulations on your daughter making 16, great, like she's driving, all the things. And we're engaging on a personal level. That's a whole nother story about that. But if they're doing that process well, and there's other salespeople on there, and that person, I will tell you out of experience as well, because I've been doing sales my entire life, that relationship that they're having with their customer on the sales line is very different than somebody who's transactional. They're building a deep relationship with their customer. And if that other person, if the process is written, that these are all the things, the details that we want to have in the CRM, and people are like, why do they all need it? I have a relationship with them. If that's where your ego is, it's not about that. It's about doing that process well. And so, Richard, if I'm doing that process well, and there's 4 other people, I can bring them along. I can lead my co-workers right along. It doesn't have to come from the sales manager. And so everybody can lead right where they're at to make the company great. And so now I am on that boat rowing as hard as my sales manager, right? And that's what we're trying to get to. And I can help others be accountable to help get on this boat.
And that can be invigorating
I hope so.
and motivating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that if it's not invigorating and not motivating, find somebody else that it is, right? Because if that's not it, I mean, I love it when even some of my customers, when I was out in Montana, we went fly fishing together. I've gone skiing with these guys. I've had dinner at their house twice with their kids, right? And we're building this relationship that is undividable, right? And we're knowing everything about everybody and doing all the things. I actually invited them to go on vacation with us. We had a ski vacation and we had 2 people back out and I just threw them in there. I'm like, you want to come with us? And I've known them 9 months, 6 months. But we build that relationship, right? And so I would say that, yeah, if your salespeople aren't jiving and trying to get that, you're missing the boat because these guys, I mean, they're probably listening. They'll leave me eventually, right? We have them for 2 years, but we're building a lasting relationship that won't change. Like I know all their kids, right? Like it's just a cool experience. So
you become a part of that process. There's that word again, but you become a part of that process that is very indelible. So why is process the hardest?
Our mindset. This is how we believe strongly about it. It is the hardest because people do think that I need to make a 70-page binder writing all the details out. So here's this, I'm actually exactly 4 minutes in. So here's the secret. 2080. I said that right. 2080. Write that down.
Yeah.
So we are going to look at, as a leadership team, we are going to own and we are going to obsess about writing 20% of the processes, as far as we're going to write them all, but only 20% of the detail. But that 20% will give us 80% of the results. And so in our world, these are called core processes. There is 5 to 15 max core processes within any organization. There's a sales, there's a marketing, there's an HR, there's a handful of operations, depending on what you're doing from a company standpoint, right? There is an accounting function, and there is a customer service function. Now, again, there can be some more nuances, right? Depending on how big you are, there might be an IT function, there might be, right, different things. But 5 to 15, and all you're doing is a major outline. So let's use HR and say, we've got to know that there's a problem, a missing link, right? We've got to search for them. We've got to interview them. Once we get them, we've got to onboard them. We've got to train them. And ultimately, we have to terminate them. Sadly to say, but we might, right? And so those are the steps. Those are the major steps of HR. If we miss one of those major steps, 20%, we are not going to get 80% of the results. If I forget to interview somebody, we got a problem. If I forget to identify the need, we got a problem. If I forget to terminate, you're getting the point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to belabor it and be funny about it, but I am. And so sales has the same things. So core processes, owning those 20% to give us 80%. Then, Peter, you're the sales manager. You're on the leadership team. You own the sales core process. Now, you go to train me. That core process has to turn into some sort of training process, more detail, right? And so the CRM, let's use that, right? One of the major steps is enter data in the CRM, right? That's a major step. And if that's not done, but now I need to know what data you're looking for, right? And so now you bring me on and say, okay, Michele, today is the CRM training day, right? And here's when you have a new customer, this is all the information in the first 6 months that I want you to gather on them. It's not right away. I'm not going to be like, and your kid's birthday and your wife's anniversary, what's your anniversary? Like, no, just get it organically by building a relationship, right? But then filling in this data. Now, their EIN, right? Their address. Some of these things are majorly needed, right? But what do I need and what's that order? That is in an SOP that you, Richard and Michele, own and design and go. And then we train Michele on it. We measure Michele on it, meaning that, hey, CRM data must be put in 24 hours. Did you do it or didn't you do it? There's a scorecard. If you've been listening to these podcasts, there's the scorecard that I need to manage Michele on it. And the beauty of managing Michele on it is it's clear. Here is the CRM tagline. Here's all the things that I need you to do. There's nothing unclear about what I'm expected to do with the CRM. And so when you manage Michele, you're not managing Michelle's personality, which sometimes is a pain in the butt, but you're managing the process. Consistently managing the process. And so Michele was there and Joe was there and all those. Joe, you didn't do the fourth thing in CRM. Why didn't you do it? I didn't feel like it. Well, it's kind of not negotiable. Now now we're dealing with personalities. We don't deal with personalities. Managing humans is so much fun if we're clear, they're fully trained, and managing them is just like there's a process and I'm clear and you're clear. I'm going to execute all day long. All day long.
So this is why this is tough, because a fair amount of the time we may not have clarity on our processes, and that gums up the works.
It gums up the works. And that's what I'm saying. Like, slow down to go fast. And some people say, well, we can't slow down. We can't take time. You have to. I'm begging you to slow down, right? And as a leader, you don't have to know all the details. And so you might have heard me say this in the past podcasts. Those that use the broom should buy the broom. So leaders think that they need to write the sales process, except they haven't done the full sales process in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. You don't know it anymore. Core process, major steps, heck yeah, you know it. As far as how that is all done, and they have learned in the sales force, the sales team saying, hey, this is the kind of ideal time to ask what their birthdays are or get personal or do this. They know better than you do. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I probably ticked off a lot of people, and I'm hoping you'll come see another podcast of mine. I do everything out of love, but sometimes we have to put up a mirror and saying we are the problem. And so when we don't have it and we don't have clarity, we don't have engagement, people don't come to work saying, can I screw up today? Let me see what I can screw. No one's wired that way. They have maybe learned that way and are upset enough that they are doing that. I'm not saying no one's doing that. So hear me. When they come in, they're not wired that way, right? They want to do good work. Most people want to do good work. It's just this clear expectation of what's done, and the consistency from Michele salesperson to Joe salesperson to Betty salesperson, that this is the way we do it. And so there's another expression that I would love for you guys to write down. It's called systemize the predictable so we can humanize the exceptional. So systemize everything that Michele needs to do in this CRM, Joe needs to do, and Betty needs to do in this CRM. And when Michele or Joe or Betty goes above and beyond, we can celebrate or humanize the exceptional, right? And so all we're doing is systemizing the predictable. And people say, oh, that takes the fun out of it. Heck no. If I know exactly what I need to do and I can take my relationship to my customer and go skiing with them and fly fishing with them, I'm humanizing the exceptional. Absolutely getting to the level that we now need to do, that there's an absolute stickiness in our relationship. But I've done everything right to now.
So that's how we know we've hit the mark on this. There's no cloudiness about what needs to be done and who's doing it.
And again, some of the cloudiness comes from the leadership team pushing down what they think is happening in the field, and it's not happening, and you're pushing back and you're not listening to your people. And sometimes the people are pushing back and they're trying to cut corners. Don't hear me to say that's right? But get on the same page and be like, this is the way I think it needs to be done, leadership team. This is the way it's actually get done, and listen. Because there could be a better mousetrap in there that you just haven't thought about. But there could be really workarounds that are really crappy, and we're not going to accept it either. But listen and work together as opposed to push and mandate. But they are the ones using the broom. They are doing this day in and day out. And so it's not, no one's 100% right? You're not and they're not. But we've got to do this together. We've got to be able to do that. And you give them power like that to be heard, your employee engagement goes through the roof. We just say, we don't have time. We don't have time. Make time. You've got to make time for your people. Got to.
So at the risk of asking something that might be obvious, but let's be clear, if someone doesn't have this process nailed down right now, what are some of the symptoms they would see, the results of that?
You'll see inconsistency from one person doing that same job. Right? So if you have first, second, and third shift and you're making a widget and it's not flowing the same from one shift to the next, or they're not making the same amount. Some of that stuff you may learn that first shift does a certain way, second shift does it a certain way, not consistently done, right? So you'll see differences in execution. I've had this too, where you see teammates going at each other, right? And so
Ooh.
they're saying, but you did it this way, but you did it this way. They don't know what's right. And so they're even getting pitted against each other, right? And so they don't know what's right. And so you'll see that. You'll see a lack of performance. You'll see a lack of, well, if they can't tell me how clear to do this, I'll just get directions, right? And so instead of somebody being able to see the process and run, once done, checklist, 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 they'll go checklist, checklist. Well, there's nothing over there. I'll wait.
Wow, just stop.
Richard, well, I'm done, and I'll wait for you to give me my next thing to do. And so sometimes you see that. Right? Because they're just unclear of how that journey goes and what they own, not from a business ownership standpoint, but what they own of the process. Let them be fully engaged to drive, right? Humanize the exceptional, right? We're not just talking, just celebrating what they've done, what they should be doing. It's when they go above and beyond, and they're not going to go above and beyond if you give them nothing. What other things that you're seeing that I see out there that is, those are kind of the biggest ones. I do think there's, you'll have your top performers and you won't have the ones that are not as top performers. That's kind of always, right? So I don't think that's really a great indicator, but sometimes it is. You've got your top performers that are just going to figure out how to make a better mousetrap, and the other ones are just going to wait. So a little bit of both.
Okay. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Maybe you'd like to run that by Michele just to make sure that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
You're available for a 30-minute call, and there's no obligation there, right?
Absolutely. I would love to see you guys put the core processes together, the 5 to 15, and just outline them like a table of contents. It ends up like a table of contents in a binder. And I don't mean a binder because you could use Google Drive, or you could use OneNote or OneDrive, or I don't even know all the things anymore. But right, it doesn't matter where you house it and call it, but it is a table of contents. And then you can link it. And then there's so much great stuff out there technology-wise of making videos. Stop writing processes. Physically writing processes. Stop. Make videos. People are not going to read it. Start making videos. They're really real. And oh, by the way, you don't have to make them leadership team. Have the person on the floor make the video. They see their coworker making the video. They see themselves in that. They don't see this mucky muck up there, right? Even if it's a small organization, they still feel that way. And so when Richard and I are on the same line, and I'm training Richard and he's seeing me, the line person, making a video about how to make this widget, there's already a level of understanding and a level of camaraderie because we're at the same level. And I don't mean that derogatory either, right? So, if you have written documents already, my next thing is make a video out of it and let somebody else make it. It doesn't have to be massively produced either. Like, right? Grab the iPhone, grab yourself. Hey, how are you doing? This is how we make that. That's it. Real and raw, because if you're waiting for a huge production, you'll never do it. It's too much money, too much time.
How to lead people through the process. That's the focus of this Traction for Your Workplace Goals. There are many others that we have explored, and lots more to come. Subscribe to Traction for Your Workplace Goals, and you'll be in the loop when these episodes come available, and you'll have quick access to the ones we've already done, and you can have a look. And as Michele said, she's happy to talk to you. Contact info in the show notes. Click through today and schedule that. Michele Mollard, we'll be back soon.
Thanks for having me, Richard.